Some people say there's no such thing as a perfect wedding. My sister Emma would disagree. She'd been planning her fairy tale wedding since we were kids, down to the exact shade of pink for the roses and the precise height requirements for her bridesmaids. I just never expected to be excluded from that fairy tale because I didn't fit her aesthetic. I'm Hannah Morgan, and this is the story of how my sister's obsession with perfection led to the most dramatic revelation at a wedding our family had ever seen. I just think someone else would be a better fit, Emma said over brunch, carefully cutting her egg white omelet into precise squares. You understand, don't you? The photos have to be perfect. I sat across from her at our usual Sunday spot, Le Petit Café, struggling to process what I was hearing. My sister, my only sister, was telling me I couldn't be her bridesmaid because I wasn't pretty enough. I don't understand, I said, my coffee growing cold between my hands. We always talked about being each other's bridesmaids since we were little girls. Oh, Hannah, Emma sighed, reaching across the table to pat my hand with perfectly manicured fingers. That was before I met Charles, before we started planning this wedding. It's going to be featured in Modern Bride magazine. Everything has to be absolutely perfect. Charles Montgomery was my sister's fiancé, the heir to Montgomery Industries, and, according to Emma, her ticket to the life she'd always deserved. They'd met at a charity gala where Emma had been working as an event coordinator. 6 months later, they were engaged. So because I'm not model material, I can't stand up with my own sister at her wedding. I tried to keep the hurt out of my voice, but it crept in anyway. Emma had always been the pretty one, tall, blonde, and effortlessly elegant. I took after our father's side. Average height, brown hair, practical. Not ugly by any means, but not the kind of beauty that turned heads. Growing up, I learned to focus on other things, my studies, my career as an accountant, my volunteer work at the local animal shelter. Don't be dramatic, Emma rolled her eyes. You can still come to the wedding, obviously, just not as part of the bridal party. I've already asked Sophia, Madison, and Victoria to be my bridesmaids. They're all the perfect height, they'll look amazing in the dresses, and they understand the importance of presentation. Her 3 closest friends from the country club. Of course. Does Mom know about this? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Our mother had always backed Emma's decisions, no matter how outrageous. Mom agrees it's for the best, Emma said primly. She wants the wedding to be perfect too. The Montgomerys are practically American royalty, Hannah. We can't have anything less than excellence. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Several heads turned our way, but for once, I didn't care about making a scene. You know what, Emma? You're right. Your wedding should be perfect, so perfect that you won't even notice I'm not there at all. Hannah, don't be childish, Emma called after me as I walked away. This is exactly why you can't be in the bridal party. You're so emotional. I spent the next week throwing myself into work, trying to ignore the constant stream of wedding updates from my mother. Emma had chosen the flowers, white peonies and pink roses imported from Holland. The bridesmaids' dresses were being custom made by a designer I couldn't pronounce. The guest list had topped 500 people. I just don't understand why you're being so difficult about this, Mom said during one of her daily calls. Emma's doing what's best for her special day. You could at least help with the planning. Best for her special day? I laughed bitterly. Mom, she told me I'm too plain to be in her wedding. How am I supposed to help plan something I'm not even good enough to be part of? Oh, sweetheart, Mom sighed. You know how Emma is. She's always been particular about appearances. And with Charles's family being who they are, right? I cut her off. The almighty Montgomerys. Has anyone actually met them? Besides Charles, I mean. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Well, no. They're very private people. But they're coming to the engagement party next weekend. Emma says it's very important that everything goes smoothly. The engagement party. I'd almost forgotten. 500 of the couple's closest friends gathering at the Montgomery estate to celebrate. Emma had been talking about it for weeks, going on about the ice sculptures and champagne fountain. I don't think I'll be attending, I said firmly. Hannah Rose Morgan. Mom's voice rose an octave. You absolutely must be there. What will people think if Emma's own sister doesn't show up? They'll probably think I'm too plain to be seen in public, I muttered, but Mom wasn't listening. I'm sending you a gift card to Nordstrom, she continued. Get yourself something appropriate to wear. Something slimming. And maybe get your hair done. Emma mentioned a wonderful stylist who might be able to help with your situation. I hung up before she could finish critiquing my appearance. The next day at work, I was buried in spreadsheets when my office phone rang. It was Patricia from the legal department. Hannah, could you come down here for a moment? We need your eyes on something. I welcomed the distraction. Numbers had always been my refuge. They didn't care what you looked like, only that you understood their language. Patricia was waiting for me with a stack of documents. We're doing an audit of recent contracts, and something's not adding up in these prenuptial agreement drafts. Given your experience with financial forensics, I froze. Did you say prenuptial agreement drafts? Yes, for the Montgomery Morgan wedding. Charles's family insisted on having multiple firms review it, standard procedure for estates of their size. My hands trembled slightly as I took the documents. I knew I shouldn't look. This was private between Emma and Charles. But something about Patricia's concern. 3 hours later, I sat back in my chair, my head spinning. The prenup wasn't just a standard protection of assets. Hidden in the dense legal language and complicated financial clauses was something far more sinister. Charles Montgomery wasn't the heir to a fortune. He was the face of a crumbling empire. Montgomery Industries was on the verge of bankruptcy, desperately seeking an influx of cash. And Emma, my perfect, beautiful sister, she wasn't just marrying into money, she was bringing it. Our grandfather had left us both substantial trust funds when he died. Mine was modest. I'd used most of it for college and a down payment on my condo, but Emma had never touched hers, letting it grow over the years. According to the prenup, the moment she married Charles, her entire trust fund would be invested in Montgomery Industries. She had to know. Emma was many things, but she wasn't stupid about money, which meant my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Don't forget about the engagement party tomorrow night. Wear something dark. You'll blend into the background better. I looked at the stack of documents in front of me, then back at the text. After a moment, I began to make copies. The engagement party would be perfect, all right, just not in the way Emma had planned. Part 2. The Montgomery estate was exactly as pretentious as I'd imagined. A sprawling mansion with manicured gardens and a fountain that probably cost more than my annual salary. I parked my sensible Honda between sleek luxury cars, clutching my bag containing the prenup documents like a shield. I'd spent hours debating how to handle this. Part of me wanted to confront Emma privately, give her a chance to explain. But I knew my sister. She'd find a way to spin it, to make me look like the bad guy, just like she always had. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, not the dark, forgettable dress Emma had suggested, but a deep emerald green that brought out my eyes. My plain brown hair was styled in elegant waves, and for once I'd taken time with my makeup. I might not be bridesmaid material, but I wasn't going to slink into the background either. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Ice sculptures glittered under strategic lighting, champagne flowed freely, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. Emma held court near the grand staircase, resplendent in a white designer dress that probably cost more than my car. "Hannah," she called out, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "You actually made an effort. How? Nice." "Thanks, sis," I replied sweetly. "You look perfect, as always. Where's Charles? There's something I'd love to discuss with both of you." "Oh, he's talking business with some investors." Emma waved vaguely toward the study. "You know how it is. Actually, would you mind not bothering him tonight? This party is very important for the family's connections." "I'm sure it is," I murmured, especially given Montgomery Industries' current financial situation. Emma's perfectly practiced smile faltered for just a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No? Maybe we should discuss the prenup then. The one that signs over your entire trust fund to a failing company." The color drained from Emma's face. She grabbed my arm, manicured nails digging into my skin. "Not here," she hissed. "How do you even know about that?" "I'm an accountant, remember. The plain, boring sister who's good with numbers." The documents crossed my desk today. "It's none of your business." Emma's voice was low, dangerous. "You don't understand anything about this." "Then explain it to me," I challenged. "Explain why you're throwing away your future for a man who's using you for money." "Using me?" Emma laughed, but there was an edge of hysteria to it. "You think I don't know exactly what I'm doing? This is my chance, Hannah. Once the merger is complete, once the company recovers, I'll be Mrs. Montgomery, one of the most powerful women in the city. No more event planning, no more scraping by on commission. I'll finally be somebody. You already are somebody, I said softly. You're my sister. A sister you clearly don't support, she snapped. Just like you're trying to ruin my wedding by not being a proper bridesmaid. You've always been jealous of me. Jealous? I couldn't help but laugh. Emma, I'm trying to protect you. Have you even met Charles's parents? Anyone from the company? A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. They're very private people, Charles says. Charles says a lot of things, doesn't he? But where is his family tonight? At their own son's engagement party? Emma glanced around the crowded room, and for the first time, I saw doubt in her eyes. The party was full of her friends, our relatives, business associates, but no one from the Montgomery family. They had prior commitments, she said weakly. Important business matters. More important than this? I pressed. Than you? Before she could respond, Charles appeared beside us, handsome in his tuxedo, but with a slight sheen of sweat on his forehead that hadn't been there in any of the society page photos. Emma, darling, he said, barely glancing at me. Some of the investors are asking about the merger timeline. Perhaps you could charm them while I make some calls. Actually, I stepped forward. I'd love to hear about the merger too. And maybe you could introduce us to your parents. They must be here somewhere. Charles's smile became fixed. I'm sorry you are? Hannah, Emma's sister. The one who's too plain for the wedding photos? I'm also a financial forensics specialist, and I have some fascinating questions about Montgomery Industries' recent SEC filings. The color drained from Charles's face. He grabbed Emma's arm, much like she had grabbed mine earlier. Darling, we should really speak to those investors. No. Emma's voice was quiet but firm. She pulled away from him, looking between us. Hannah's right. Where are your parents, Charles? Why hasn't anyone from your family come to a single event? Why did you insist I sign that prenup so quickly? Emma, please. Charles lowered his voice. You're making a scene. Am I? Emma's voice rose slightly. I think my sister is asking some very reasonable questions. Questions I should have asked months ago. People were starting to stare. The string quartet faltered slightly in their playing. Your sister, Charles said through clenched teeth, needs to learn to mind her own business, unless she wants to deal with certain consequences. Are you threatening my sister? Emma's eyes narrowed. All the uncertainty vanished from her expression, replaced by something I hadn't seen in years. The fierce protectiveness we shared as children, before society pages and status became her priority. Of course not, Charles backpedaled. I'm simply saying. He's saying he doesn't want everyone to know that Montgomery Industries is bankrupt. I announce, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, that this whole engagement is a scheme to get access to Emma's trust fund before the company collapses. The room went silent. Emma stood very still, looking at Charles with new eyes. Is it true? She whispered, Charles' handsome face twisted into something ugly. You gold-digging little. Before he could finish, Emma's hand cracked across his face in a slap that would have made any soap opera proud. How dare you, she said, her voice shaking. I loved you. I trusted you. I was ready to give you everything. Emma, please. Charles reached for her, but she stepped back. No, Hannah, do you have proof? Wordlessly, I pulled the documents from my bag. Emma took them with trembling hands, her eyes scanning the pages. The company's been failing for years, I explained gently. Charles's father was forced out 6 months ago after an SEC investigation. They needed fresh capital and your trust fund was their last hope. Emma finished. She looked up at Charles, tears in her eyes. There is no fairy tale wedding, is there? No perfect future. It was all a lie. Not all of it, Charles pleaded. Emma, I do care for you. We can still make this work. Security, Emma called out clearly. Please escort Mr. Montgomery and his associates out. The engagement is off. The next hour was chaos. Charles was removed from the premises, still protesting. Guests whispered and pointed. Photos appeared on social media. By midnight, the Montgomery scandal was trending locally. Emma and I sat in the garden long after most guests had left, sharing a bottle of champagne from the abandoned fountain. I've been horrible to you, Emma said finally, staring into her glass. All those things I said about your looks, about the wedding. I was so caught up in this perfect image, this idea of who I had to be. Hey, I nudged her shoulder. You're my sister. I'll always have your back, even when you're being a bridezilla. She laughed weakly. Thought I wasn't I. The worst part is, I knew something wasn't right. But I wanted so badly to believe in the fairy tale. Sometimes fairy tales are overrated, I said. Sometimes the best stories are the real ones, imperfections and all. Emma was quiet for a moment. Thank you, she said finally, for being brave enough to tell me the truth. For not giving up on me even when I was awful to you. That's what sisters are for. The scandal made headlines for weeks. Montgomery Industries' collapse became a cautionary tale in financial circles. Charles and several executives faced federal charges for fraud. Emma took some time to travel to rediscover who she was without the pressure of society expectations. When she returned, she started her own event planning company, specializing in small, intimate weddings that focus on love rather than spectacle. Last month, she got engaged again to a kind, unassuming architect who looks at her like she's the most beautiful woman in the world, even when she's in sweatpants with no makeup. Will you be my maid of honor? She asked me over brunch at Le Petit Café. I know I don't deserve it after last time, but... Of course, I cut her off. But only if you promise no height requirements or aesthetic restrictions. She laughed, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. The only requirement is that my sister stands beside me. That's what makes it perfect. Sometimes the best endings aren't the fairy tales we dream of, but the real stories we live. Messy, imperfect, and all the more beautiful for their flaws. Emma and I learned that the hard way, but we learned it together. And in the end, that's worth more than any perfect wedding could ever be.